the week that was last week. A week on the road in many senses for anyone associated with Liverpool, but a bit of a nightmare week on the road. And I wanted to get your opinion on the fallout from it, I guess, in many ways, and some of the criticism that's followed, because I was on the radio last night and it was put to me that it was a mini crisis. I wanted to get your take on that, really, having followed it obviously closely, literally, in person. Obviously, it starts with Crystal Palace, 2-1 defeat there. Galatasaray midweek, 1-0 defeat. And obviously, Chelsea is the finale to the whole thing. I think in isolation, they're 3 tricky matches, 3 tricky away games. Not easy places to go. It's the timing of it all that makes it seem so dramatic. And so this is all broken. How do we fix it? That's my take on it anyway. What's been your sort of general assessment of that week?
Yeah, I think the fewer games Liverpool lose and the longer they go without losing anything significant, any games that, are particularly important, certainly in the Premier League, feels like supporters, or some supporters at least, forget how to absorb it and how to handle it properly. So we're seeing remarkable fallout really from the Palace game. Liverpool weren't good on the day, didn't really deserve to get a draw, let alone, anything more than that, and deservedly lose. But that was the first defeat of any consequence in the Premier League for 12 months, going back to that Nottingham Forest game, because you think the Fulham game they lose on the Sunday, 3-2, and that stops them going 14 points clear, so they stay 11 clear. So that ultimately doesn't mean a whole lot. And then you lose to Chelsea the week after winning the Premier League, and then you lose to Brighton when they're basically just in party mode. So 3 of those 4 defeats last season didn't really mean a whole lot. So this one was a little bit of a jarring sensation, because suddenly it impacts title quests and all that sort of stuff. And then to lose so soon after it at Chelsea, you can see why there's talk of it being a mini crisis. The Galatasaray defeat for me is probably neither here nor there. Liverpool don't need to go full pelt in the Champions League as it is anyway. Still fully expect them to qualify inside that top 8 and not have too many issues there, really. So I can park that. I can accept that and think, Galatasaray weren't great themselves, get a penalty which is dubious, and you just move on. But when the back-to-back defeats come, it's more the wider picture that Liverpool are yet to put together a proper, complete performance across 90 minutes for this season. And it was great when they were winning games in the last minutes and whatever else. They win 5 on the bounce. They have an excellent start to the season results-wise, but you're still waiting for those performances to come. And, you're saying the longer they can win games without playing well, the more that bodes well, because eventually they will play themselves into form. But now they're not. That's not happening, is it? The talk is Liverpool are getting away with it externally, and now they're not getting away with it. So it's a bit of a mini crisis, as you say. But the upside is, for all the doom and gloom around the club at the moment, and people are looking to put the boot in, let's make no mistake, externally. It's an easy one to have a little go at Liverpool because they've been pretty much flawless for the last 12 months. But they're only a point behind Arsenal. The September international break is, a totally different beast to the October one in terms of Liverpool has just beaten Arsenal. They just signed Isak. They went into it riding high. This one, on the back of 3 defeats, had a bit of a low ebb. But the wider picture is that they're still only a point behind Arsenal, and still all to play for, isn't it? Oh,
most definitely. And I think some of the criticism, some of the pile-on has been a little bit overblown and a little bit harsh. And I think we as Liverpool fans, I think I've seen it in our own fan base, have been guilty of it as well. But maybe it is, and you touched upon it there, the fact that the results were great, the performances didn't really marry up, and maybe they did mask and sort of cover some of the cracks that were there. Because I think obviously we were on tour in pre-season and we were conceding lots of chances and ultimately goals as well. So maybe the warning signs were there, and all of a sudden, like say, you do lose 3 on the spin, and alarm bells start to ring. I want to touch on some of the reasons and some of the sort of the areas that are being blamed for what's been that nightmare week. And we'll start with the new signings needing time to bed in. I want to get your sort of assessment on and general feel having been on the ground for so many of these games, like I say. On that as just a concept, really. Florian Wirtz is probably the headline one. Obviously, we know the reasons behind Isak and Milas Kerkez as well. I think they're the three, really, and you could include Jimmy Frimpong, but I've held off on him for the moment because I want to touch on him in more detail in a second. But yeah, I think there is definitely an argument for, you know, the new arrivals haven't hit the ground running, and there is definitely issues with the cohesion, and they haven't gelled like Arne Slot would have wanted.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned those four there, and at least three of them are starting most weeks, aren't they? If it's not Isak, it's Ekitike. So, you know, big areas of the pitch where it's all changed. And I think the biggest issue for Slot, or one of them, is how to get the best out of Florian Wirtz in an attacking sense while still retaining the solidity and the stability behind them. I think maybe McAllister being out of sorts has had a knock-on effect of that. Mm-hmm. Gravenberch, I think, has had a good season so far. Maybe not so much the last couple of games, but generally he's been fine. It's more just Liverpool look easier to get at because they haven't got, maybe there was like playing in that central attacking midfield area where he was always leading the press. He was always getting across to ensure that the fullbacks didn't have an outlet, closing down central defenders when he needed to. And Wirtz is a good presser, but he hasn't quite got into that mode as of yet. I think it's been a bit unfortunate as well, to an extent where he probably could have had 3 or 4 assists already had it not been for, I think Mo Salah's been most guilty of this. You know, look at that brilliant sort of pirouette flick into Salah's path against Chelsea, and if he scores that, you're looking at it and thinking, well, what an impact that is, you know, almost his first touch, and Liverpool are back in the game. There was a couple against Arsenal where he plays him in and Salah takes a heavy touch, and there was the one against Atletico Madrid where he starts the move and he finishes it to Salah, and Salah hits the post. So, you know, on another couple of days he might have had 3 or 4 assists, and you're not really talking about him being an issue. But again, you know, he's in and out of games, isn't he? And I suppose you have to accept that at this stage of his career, certainly at a new club, but in general he's still only 22, so every time he gets on the ball he can't be able to carve open defences, and you can't really expect that of him. So big expectations coming in. I was absolutely delighted when Liverpool signed him. I've been looking forward to watching him play ever since he signed in June. You know, he was one of the players who would have picked Liverpool to have signed had you chosen anyone across Europe last season, you know, realistically. So I still think he will come good, but at the moment, you know, it's not his fault, but, you know, he's a symptom of a side who are struggling to put it all together at the moment.
That was a clip from Journo Insight. To check out the whole show, head to redmenplus.com or click the link in the description.